The Bible tells us not to be discouraged because God is always with us. Please be encouraged by the following message.
What do we do when the promises of God don't seem to be playing out the way that they're supposed to? In 2 Kings chapter 4, we see a story of a woman and her encounters with the prophet Elisha. There's a woman that built a room in her house just to give him a place to stay, and she even feeds him whenever he's passing through. And one day he sends his servant to go and ascertain from the woman just what it is that she needs, whether it's a hearing with the king or his generals or anything like that. But what they actually find out is that this woman, who is getting older, still hasn't had any children, and that's what she's desiring the most. So we pick up here in 2 Kings chapter 4 and verse 14, where it says, "What can be done for her?" Elisha asked. Gehazi said, "She has no son, and her husband is old." Then Elisha said, "Call her." So he called her, and she stood in the doorway. "About this time next year," Elisha said, "you will hold a son in your arms." "No, Lord," she objected. "Please, man of God, don't mislead your servant." But the woman became pregnant, and the next year about the same time she gave birth to a son, just as Elisha had told her. So far things are going pretty good here, but I'm going to summarize the next couple of verses here. Basically, one day the son goes out to his father and his servant out in the field and says that his head hurts. At which point they go back to the house and he just lays right there on his mother's lap and shortly thereafter dies. So the mother is left thinking, what is going on? How could this be? This is a promise from God that came true. His prophet spoke it to me. So what is going on? So immediately she does something that's very profound and worth taking notice of here. She gets a donkey and a servant and everything, and she packs up and she goes in search of the prophet Elisha. She ends up fighting him at Mount Carmel, riding donkey and everything, and then petitions him to please come and see what they can do. So Elisha sends his servant Gehazi ahead of him, at which point he lays his staff on the boy, trying to resuscitate him, to bring him back to life, but it doesn't work. So then Elisha has to come, and when he gets there, here's what happens in verse 33. He went in, shut the door on the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. Then he got on the bed and lay on the boy, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes, hands to hands. As he stretched himself out on him, the boy's body grew warm. Elisha turned away and walked back and forth in the room, and then got on the bed and stretched out on him once more. The boy sneezed several times and opened his eyes. The boy had come back to life. So I just want to encourage you guys right here, just through this story. There's many things we can pick up on here. Number one that I see is just the faith of this woman. She wasn't going to give up on the promises of God, that it had been fulfilled. She got her son, and then he died, but that wasn't enough. She's like, I am going to take action. I'm going to see that the promises of God are fulfilled, just like earlier when she said like she's being misled. And then the second important thing I want you guys to get from this is Elisha, and even with his servant before him, they had to try multiple times. The stick on top of him, his rod or whatever, did not work, the staff. And then Elisha had to lay on top of him, still didn't work. And then he did it a second time, and that is when it took place. So whatever you guys are believing for, whatever you're struggling for, whatever's going on in your life, if you had a promise of God and it hasn't come to pass, or it has come to pass, but it hasn't happened the way you thought, things took a turn for the worse, and things are really looking bad, that is the time that you should be taking action, that you should have faith and believe, but also to take action, to get on your donkeys, to saddle up and search after the things of God and the answers to the situation that you're in.
Thank you for listening to Tough Stuff Ministries, reminding you of God's promises, which are yes, and in Him, amen.